That's all I have.
Any further questions from the Commonwealth?
I do just have one question for Deputy Klopotowski. You've testified that you actually started your career as a correctional officer, correct?
That's correct.
And just a moment ago, you heard some testimony that the Department of Corrections pays about $1.5 million a year for activities, inmate activities.
Right.
In your opinion, should the Department of Corrections get rid of all activities for the inmates?
In my opinion, through my experience, no.
And why is that?
Well, there's going to be, time that as the term leisure time. I mean, leisure in prison is kind of an oxymoron, but either leisure time or downtime. And I've always been a proponent that the idle mind is the devil's workshop. So whatever we can do to keep them busy, it's to our benefit. I had when I broke in, the old timers told me that when they were able to purchase a TV, that was one of the best things that the department ever did, because the TV is basically an effective babysitter. They purchase their TV and they pay for whatever cable service they're going to get. It's not like we're giving them TV and we're providing them with free cable service. But I think that those activities that we can use through our activities department to keep them actively occupied and doing something other than getting in our hair, for lack of a better term. That's to our benefit, to our advantage.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Any questions from the panel?
I do. Thank you. I'm sorry. I don't have my own microphone, so I have to share.
We took it away after last.
Well, they had to. There's a really good reason for that. Secretary Ringler, I have a couple questions for you first. You said that the overall budget for the department is about $1.64 billion.
This year, correct, state money.
Okay, and that's state monies. And does that include the construction costs?
It does not.
It does not, okay. And how much of that $1.64 billion is personnel costs? And I'm not talking, yeah, and obviously I'm not talking about the people that you employ who you also have care, custody, and control of, but about 70% of that?
Right.
Okay. And if we're talking about specifically the H-1 unit, they're about 64% of the entire makeup of the DSC? At least that's what the slide said?
Yeah,
Okay.
that would seem about right from what I remember the slide on the first day was.
Okay. So if we're talking about 1.6 billion, okay. And do you have a breakdown as to what actual H-1 costs, personnel costs are?
I don't. The only breakdown I have of costs, and I'm not sure if you're interested, so I'll let you know what I have. Tell me if you want me to read any numbers.
Sure.
I have the cost of what it costs for us to provide security as a total, but not just. Now, most of it is personnel costs, but I don't have it broken.
Okay, I understand. And I completely understand that. Now, you said that the other thing that I did not know was there is an accreditation process.
That is correct.
And obviously we've got 50 states, and do you know approximately how many of those 50 states are accredited?
I don't.
No.
No. But this seems like something that you have to conform to specific standards. And it seems like something that would be rather prestigious in the corrections profession.
That is correct. And when we received the Eagle Award, it was a big deal.
I can imagine, because I do represent a couple of police officers, and they have a national accreditation as well, and that's considered to be something that's a cut above the rest. Obviously, out of the 50 states, you didn't know the answer to how many have the accreditation. Out of what Mr. Casal called the 7 contiguous states, I think there's only 6, but Do you know how many of those are accredited?
I do not.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, just to clarify, Pennsylvania is included, so there are 7, 6 contiguous states, 7. I was
Oh,
giving the ranking
okay.
out of 7.
All right. But of the 6 other states that are contiguous to us, do you have any idea whether any of those are accredited?
I believe some of them are, but I can't say
And,
with confidence.
and do you know if any have won the Eagle Award?
That I don't know. When we won the Eagle Award, you know, there were only 6 others, you know, that have received it, and I don't know if our neighbors were any of them.
Okay. But and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that what it requires is the participation of your employees in order to receive this accreditation, that they've got to perform to a level that's a cut above.
Absolutely, it requires,
Okay.
you know, the workforce.
Okay. Now, you mentioned, and you were talking to Mr. Egan about what he calls idle pay, what you and I will call workforce pool pay.
General labor pool.
General labor pool pay, okay. And what I calculated that out to be, based upon, you said, generally about 7,000 people at a time, that comes out to be about $1.8 million.
It's in the mid one something.
Okay.
Because not everyone, you know, it's always a snapshot in time.
Oh, sure.
The numbers.
And it's going to change from time to time.
There's holidays and stuff that hurt it, you know, you're not paying for.
Okay. And then, you know, obviously, there's this activity fund that, you know, part of the commissary funds go to, which is about $1.5 million. So, to me, that comes out to be about, you know, $3.3 million. And I just did some very rough math. If we're correct that the average CO wage is $51,000, or the average H-1 member wage is $51,000 a year, and assuming that there's 12,000 of them.
That was the median. Average is about 55.
The average is about 55, and I would assume that is not salary and longevity, that's overtime as well, it's W-2 income.
I believe it's, yes.
It's W-2?
Average salary.
Is it average?
Average gross salary.
Oh, gross, so it's W-2. But I was just looking at that, and it seems to me that that amount of money comes out to be about more than $300 per corrections officer. So that's a half point of pay, isn't it?
I haven't done the math, but there's certainly an amount that you divide out by the corrections officers that
Okay.
that you could say that, you know, that
Okay.
could cover this
Right.
portion of the salary.
And you said that, you know, each institution, and then, trust me, as I become more exposed to these, I'm appreciating exactly what you said about a city within a city. And you do provide basic services in addition to the medical. You provide, you know, for instance, they said there was the purchase of a television from, you know, purchased a television from the inmate welfare fund or whatever we call it. For the common areas. And do those televisions have cable television?
Yes, they do. The cost for that cable, it's built into the overall charge to the inmates, so there's not an extra charge to the IGW.
Okay, so, you know, do they have the basic package or the gold standard?
There is no gold standard in prison cable packaging. We have one cable package for everyone across all of our prison systems, and that there's no premium channels on there. There's roughly, I'm not even sure the number, 30 or 40 channels in that, and and inmates are submitting things all the time, wanting to get extra channels in that.
Yeah, there's nothing on them anyhow, trust me. But what does that run an inmate a month?
About $16.
$16?
Yes.
And I take it, you know, compared to private sector costs, that seems relatively light. is there like a special deal that you have with one of the cable companies where they discount it?
Cable company we use, yes, and it's a standard rate that gets charged to all inmates across the system.
Oh, okay.
We utilize the cable.
All right, and I believe you said that about 30,000 of the jobs that you have are funded through the general fund?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And I guess the other 16, 17,000 are going to come from prison industries?
No, the 1,500 comes from prison industry. The general fund does pay for the general labor pool, and then there's the 7,000 that do not work.
That do not work. Okay, okay, I understand that. All right. Now, one exhibit that you had was, it looks like you're going to be adding about 5,300, I'll call general beds, to the system.
That's not right.
And I read it to be about 1,500 mods.
It's 1,200.
1,200. So if I do those numbers, that comes up to about an increase in population of about 12%. Now, what are the DOC's plans for increasing the complement staff by 12%?
Well, they're probably not going to be increased by 12%. But let me tell you exactly how we would do this complement. If we open another housing unit, we're not going to go into a facility and say you've got 500 inmates in that facility, and now that you're getting another, or 2,000 inmates in that facility, now you're getting another 150. So let's do a ratio to say we're going to add just as many staff as we are inmates percentage-wise, because we're not going to be adding any more perimeter patrols. We're not going to be adding any more people to certain standard posts that are already covered. We will, however, add complement to the housing units, that would, need to be staffed, and we would take a look at the impact on what these additional inmates do to the staffing and add accordingly, but it's not going to come up to the same percentage. Now, when you talk about new prisons, now there you're going to look at something that's going to come up to that kind of a percentage number, because it's like a banner. You're going to be adding, 500 some jobs there, because that's what it takes to run a whole prison. And that's what you do in a comparison, a new prison versus that's easy. Now,
But
Graterford then.
within Graterford's going to be mothballed.
We're kind of moving the
Yeah.
staff from one
Okay.
prison to the other, and take a look at what our needs are. If it's insufficient what we have there, then we'll have to add staff.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Secretary Klopotowski, I don't have any questions for you, but I do want to thank you, and you, Mr. Secretary, as well. Two people who acknowledged today that corrections is not a job, but rather a profession. And I think there's too few people in the world who recognize that, and you two seem like you truly do, and I wanted to thank you on behalf of the entire membership.
Thank you. Well,
Any further questions from either party? Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to take a lunch break now. We will reconvene 1 o'clock. Thank you.